recruiting solves all your problems. It just does. Now we laid out a bunch of the principles of how that applies through this whole episode. A lot of our success over the years has been from newer agents, and so I call them green agents. Like they don't know what they don't know yet. And so we've had to learn and build our onboarding and boot camp to just really kind of go back to the basics and go super simple. And then you can always add complexity from there. Just a reminder to everyone listening, simple scales. Complexity, or scale brings complexity by itself, right? So you don't need to, if first and foremost, the biggest rule that I would have for anyone that's working on their onboarding is make it simple and make it duplicatable to where you can repeat it and you have a proven process each and every time. Matt, can you please help us with our onboarding? It is a disaster. We need help. And so I brought in Jenna Swift, who is our director of operations, to help us unpack what we are doing right now in our onboarding and our boot camp, how she's organizing it and how she's taken my chaotic brain and packaging it and positioning it to set our agents up for success. A little bit of backstory. A lot of our success over the years has been from newer agents. And so I call them green agents. Like they don't know what they don't know yet. And so we've had to learn and build our onboarding and boot camp to just really kind of go back to the basics and go super simple. And then you can always add complexity from there. Just a reminder to everyone listening, simple scales. Complexity, or scale brings complexity by itself, right? So you don't need to, if first and foremost, the biggest rule that I would have for anyone that's working on their onboarding is make it simple and make it duplicatable to where you can repeat it and you have a proven process each and every time. We've tried it both ways. And the winging it method that Matt did doesn't work very well. And so if that's you, hopefully we can give you some structure, which is why we have the amazing Jenna here today to share the structure that she's put in place right now, because this is literally something that she's been knee deep in for about a quarter revamping. And so it's really good timing because she's really just redone this for our organization. So Jenna, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, the first thing I'll say is it'll never be perfect. I think a lot of people are reaching for this perfect formula when it comes to onboarding agents. It's always going to be adapting and evolving. So if your target is to have this same exact thing every single time until the end of time, that's just not going to happen. It's always going to shift because our market changes. It would be crazy for your onboarding process to stay the same.
Yeah, I want to just add to that is and this is not exact, right? But I think the 80-20 principle applies, right? There's going to be, if you were in real estate 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 5 years ago, or you just started today, there are principles that are tried and true that work, right? Go back to after the COVID market and all these agents getting out of the business, and maybe people are still struggling, right? You hear all these coaches and gurus talking about get back to the basics, back to the basics. And so those basics are still crucial and important. And that's the part that's going to remain steady throughout with just enhancements and ways to improve those basics. But then there's also going to be another 20-ish% that is hey, this is important for today's marketplace that remains fluid. And so I think it's important to find which ones are the staples that are hey, this always needs to remain. It doesn't mean you don't improve, but we're always going to have lead generation. We're always going to have scripting. We're always going to have time management. We're always going to have mindset training. We're always going to have what is it that you're always going to have? And then you have that as the staples and the foundations, and then you can add to it after that.
Yeah. In EOS, we call those our core processes. What are the core things that you got to do every single time, no matter what? They're non-negotiable for your business.
Love it. So Jenna, somebody that is all right, I've onboarded people, or maybe, so we probably have a variety of people that hey, I want to start a team, but I don't know how to onboard people. Where do I start? We probably have people that have onboarded people and they've done it better than we have. There's probably people that people that have onboarded people, or maybe have a new group coming and they're I've just completely messed this up last time. Help me. And so what would be your advice? Let's start this off with a piece of advice that you would have with your operational brain of where do you think people go wrong and how can they actually set themselves up for success?
So where I think people go wrong is they skip a bunch of stuff and just throw people into onboarding. They just throw them into the fire and say, okay, good luck, have fun. What I would recommend, I split it in, we have 3 sections when it comes to our onboarding. We've got pre-onboarding, we've got boot camp, and we've got onboarding. They're 3 separate things. And when you can take them into their 3 separate things and then tunnel vision on each portion and simplify it, it's going to create a much more scalable process. And a lot of people skip that pre-onboarding boot camp and they go straight to that onboarding. And then they're like, why are my agents like struggling? It's because we skipped 2 crucial pieces.
I would never do that, by the way. I would never just bring people on and throw them in and say, figure it out. That would never be me, right, Jenna?
Never, ever.
It's hence why Jenna has taken this over to make it better. Why I asked her for the show here, because it's been, as I've kind of observed and she shared things with me that she's working on, it's just been like light bulb moments for me of like, wow, this is going to be so much better because of the way that she has analyzed and made some changes and improvements. And so before we dive into that, first and foremost, I want to give my definition of those 3 phases that you mentioned. Pre-onboarding, that is very, very crucial. Make sure they have license in hand. All of their paperwork is done. If they're newly licensed, they got their fingerprinting, all that stuff taken care of. I even recommend that they have their agent agreement and all of that contract stuff signed prior to boot camp. I don't want day 1 of boot camp. Let's get through all this office and this just office work and admin stuff. I want day 1. It's boot camp. Let's get to work. Let's teach you how to sell real estate. And I just think too many people miss that step. And so pre-onboarding is important. I think a lot of times our onboarding looking back was a disaster because we didn't have a clear pre-onboarding process and we were just trying to jumble all the pieces together on day 1. And it was chaotic. Second piece is boot camp. It's named boot camp on purpose. There's I think it was Spring Benson that I went to and learned from at an event that she called hers Hello Week. It was a play off of Hell Week, right? Which I absolutely love. And so it's like, it's boot camp. It's tough. It's supposed to be hard. Guess what? So is real estate. I think too many of us try to make onboarding easy for the agents. And I'm not saying don't have a clear process and don't help and encourage and give them a hand up and all that stuff. But I think sometimes we do them a disservice by making it sound better than it is. And so boot camp's supposed to be hard, and make sure you have clear expectations for boot camp. Our boot camp, it depends on the fluidity of what it is we're focused on, but it's anywhere from 7 to 14 days is what our boot camp period is. And it's boot camp. It's tough, right? And the agents are doing productive things every day. And we'll unpack what that is. And then after that, we call it onboarding. Well, onboarding goes on for 90 days if they graduate boot camp, meaning did they meet the expectations that we set on day 1? And so this is, again, I think this is like, I want to slow down here. So many people miss this part. And just because you showed up means that you stay on the team. No, you have to set clear expectations, and there has to be activity that is required. There has to be skill sets they develop, that they have to want it. And they have to, I call it meeting you halfway. How I look at our agents that join our organization is they're business partners. And I've done my part, hopefully, to give them the framework, to give them the road to become successful, or at least to have an awareness around how real estate works and what they need to be successful. Have they met me halfway by doing the activity that we set out in boot camp? As an example, I believe it's 500 dials that we have. While you're learning every single day in our boot camp, you have to have 500 dials to graduate is one of our parameters. So what are your expectations? And then after they graduate boot camp, because not everybody graduates, right? I'm just be honest. It's an unpopular opinion maybe, but not everybody's cut out to be an agent. 87% of real estate agents fail. It's been that number for so long. Why do you think that is? Not everyone's cut out for this industry, and that's okay. It doesn't make them wrong, but I want to help them accelerate to learn if it's for them or it's not for them. And sometimes the best way you can help them is help them get a real job because real estate's not for them. And then if you meet the people that actually do the work and meet you halfway, now how much better are they set up for success after boot camp for the 90-day onboarding, which 90-day onboarding is a continuation of what they learned in boot camp, because boot camp, we spray them with a fire hose and we hope they regurgitate a little bit of the information. I tell people, if you can intake 30% of the information in boot camp, like that's a massive success. I don't expect you to know it all, But I'm not going to just do you a disservice and just sprinkle one thing on you at a time. We're going to spray you with a fire hose. It's going to be overwhelming, but that's why we have a 90-day onboarding so we can revisit each of those in depth so that you can retain at a higher level. And then the 90 days is where you're really applying what you learned. And the people that actually buy into that, in their first 90 days, they have multiple under contract or closed and are like really like propelling themselves to a very, very successful career.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's one thing I want to highlight that he talked about, which is it reminds me when you had said we're holding the line. I think that's like a Braveheart thing, right? Is that a Braveheart thing? Yeah, we're holding the line. And when you are, even from pre-onboarding through boot camp, you will have expectations that you are giving to these candidates, to these applicants, these hires, whatever you want to call them. You are saying, okay, this has to be done. The biggest mistakes that Matt and I have seen through onboarding is when you don't hold that line and you say, well, it's okay, it was a mistake. Because as soon as you do that, every single person in that onboarding group now has a new standard that everything you say, you're not that serious about. So you have to be pretty firm with, okay, this didn't get done. We have another boot camp happening in December. Once you get all this done, we'll get you into that boot camp. Like, so you have to hold that line.
So good. It doesn't mean you have to be a jerk, right? Mm-hmm. But it means that you set clear expectations, and one of our core values is integrity, and you act in integrity, meaning that you keep your promise that you made. If you said the expectations are this and the requirements are that, and you start making exceptions during boot camp, you're setting them up for failure, and you're not holding up your end of the bargain as their business partner. And so it's not like have this super unobtainable thing that they can't accomplish. It's give it something that is a little bit of a stretch that's going to make them uncomfortable, because that's where growth happens. It's boot camp. It's supposed to be a little bit hard, and help and encourage them to get there. But if you set the proper expectation up front and they don't uphold their end of the bargain, like, there's not much I can do. Like, you made the decision, not me. And I'm not saying like, hey, they showed up 5 minutes late, let's get rid of them, right? Like, let's make sure that we understand what I'm saying here. But if they continuously show up 5 minutes late, they did it 3 days in a row, and I've had a talk with them 2 days, like, 3 strikes, you're out. This isn't for you. We take our commitments seriously here, and that's how we succeed. And I just think it's really, really important to set the proper expectations. And if you guys listened to, I believe it was last week's podcast where we talked about the importance of recruiting, and I kind of broke down some recruiting stuff and why it's important in an organization, what you will realize, what Jenna highlighted there, is recruiting is a lifeblood to any growing business and thriving business, because you are recruiting to your new standards. You are recruiting to your subculture. You're recruiting to the things that you want to adjust, you want to adapt, you want to improve, you want to change in your organization. And guess where that becomes powerful? When you actually uphold those standards, and to use Jenna's reference for Braveheart, you hold the line of those standards so that they can inject into the organization, into your team, those new standards, that new activity, that new morale, that new thing that you want to improve or you want to inject into your organization. Now that comes from the bottom up. And that becomes the new standard. And then the rising tide of that over time rises all ships. And then we become better together because we are improving the environment by bringing in people very intentionally to help improve and make our environment better. I remember I spoke in Tahoe, and I said, it was my very first speech, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, however long ago it was. And I'd shared that we were going to, committed from stage, publicly declared, how about this, that we're going to double our team over the next 30 days. We're going to go from 20 agents to 40 agents. And we did it. And I was challenged from the crowd, and I love being challenged. I love it. I'm not saying that in a negative way, because it was a room full of team leaders, and they said, hey, you shared on culture and values and how you've built what you've built, which is awesome. But I'm curious, if you're doubling in size, aren't you worried that your culture is going to suffer? And so that's a really good question. But who says bringing on new people has to make it worse? If you bring on good people with the right expectations that fit the values, and they can actually contribute and make the organization better, now bringing in those people strategically and intentionally make that culture an even better place to work. And everyone can win at a higher level because you're bringing in the right people with the right expectations, and you're holding the line.
Mm-hmm. And with that, so when you set those expectations, one of the things we say, so one of our team standards is 20 agents sell 20 homes a year. Well, it's unfair to say, hey, agents, go sell 20 homes a year, but then not give them the path of what it would take and like what they need to do to get to that 20 homes. That would be ridiculous of us. We have to give them the path. And so it's that same ideology when it comes to pre-onboarding and boot camp. We're going to say, okay, boot camp, these are the things that need to be done. And we're going to be incredibly clear. We're going to send you an email. I'm going to make sure there's a video. I'm going to follow up with you. I'm going to be calling you, texting you to make sure that you know exactly what is done. So that way, when you get to that point and you're like, I didn't do this, there's no excuse as to you not knowing. Like, there's no way that you didn't know that that was something that needed to happen.
Very clear expectations. We have a saying around here, clarity is kindness. Clarity is kindness. And so if that is true, then to be unclear is to be unkind.
Yeah.
And too many people walk on eggshells and they're afraid to give people the truth because it may hurt their feelings. And I'm not saying be a jerk about it, but like at the end of the day, the expectations are this. Do you clearly understand them and do you agree to abide by them? Awesome. That's an agreement. Guess what? I was taught integrity. I want to hold up my end of the bargain. Am I perfect? No. But also, what kind of example am I setting if I just let that person slide because of this or because of that? Right. And it's not saying that you have to be perfect, but where was the intent? And are you just purposely like not doing the thing you were supposed like I just think that there's a nuance there, right? But I think the principle remains the same is that you have to hold the line. You have to set the proper expectations. And really quickly, we could do a whole nother podcast on this and maybe we do, but Jenna, where do the expectations start?
The interview
is the most crucial part of your onboarding. Too many of us, I'm guilty. Too many of us, I'm putting myself in this, get so excited when we get a new recruit that we think is going to come in and crush that we just bring them on and we feature and benefit dump and we don't set the proper expectations of what the work is going to look like and what is going to be required to be on our team. I learned this from Kobe Sway of the Briley team. He said it, and he said it brilliantly. He said, so many people, when they join our organization, they're number one team in Nebraska. And they bring on a lot of agents and they're going to sell over 1,000 homes this year, I believe. So the guy knows what he's talking about. And he said, what's crazy is when I'm bringing people on and we're having an in-depth mastermind on setting expectations, et cetera. He said, when I'm bringing people on, I really almost stop them before I offer them the job. Like I can tell they're interested and I'll role play it with you, Jenna, right? So pretend you're going to join my team. He says something to the effect of, Jenna, I see you're really, really excited to join our team. Before we get started and before we agree to partner in business together, I just want to be very clear with something. A lot of people have the expectation when they join our team, it's going to be easier. Like we have the easy button. In reality, it's the exact opposite. Because we have these systems, because we have this processes, because we have this coaching, because we have accountability, because we have these opportunities, all these amazing things that has you excited about joining is actually going to make it harder for you. And I just want to make sure you know what you're signing up for. And so joining us isn't going to be the easy button and it's not going to be easier for you. It's actually going to be harder for you. And I want to make sure that you're willing to meet us halfway and hold up your end of the bargain of that harder work that's going to be required. And it looks exactly like this, and this. And then you can also, after you say that, you can tie in like, but that's why we have a track record of success. And that's probably why you want to join our organization, because our agents that are committed to these are living the life that you would like to live. And I want that for you too. But if I have the wrong expectations here and you think it's going to be easy, then that's not going to happen for you.
Yeah.
Anything to add to that?
No, I think that's spot on, honestly. I mean, those expectations are incredibly important. And I think sometimes we can be a little too soft in it because we don't want to be, like you said, you don't want to feel like a jerk, but at the same time, you also don't want to be so soft that people come in and it's chaos, it's anarchy.
And I've done it both ways. Right. Mm-hmm. And I have a very direct personality, but I really have a big heart and I really care for my people. And I want everybody to win. And we've brought people on and we've not been as clear as we should have been. I've not been as clear as I should have been. And the conversation 90 days after they come on is way tougher than in the first 9 minutes. And so what I've learned is that it's their decision if they're willing to do what it takes. I know they can. Everyone can, but will they choose to? And it's up to them to make that choice, not me. And like, having the conversation 90, 120, 180 days later, when they're in a worse financial spot, when their family is struggling, whenever I have to like have the conversation of it's just not going to work because you're not doing your part. Now you got to go get a job. And I just delayed that inevitable because I, as the leader, failed to set the proper expectations up front because I didn't want to have the tough conversation. That just made me lose sleep at night. And so you can maybe like position it and say, well, Matt does that because he's a jerk or he's mean or he's this, but I do that because I care and I don't want to have that conversation 90 days from now that I've had to have in the past because I didn't have the guts to be honest and truthful up front.
Yeah.
So let's go tactical here.
Yeah. So we talked about setting expectations, but there's one thing that Matt said a while back that is super important. Your day one of boot camp is incredibly important because it sets the tone for everything. And why pre-onboarding is so important is you're getting all that paperwork, all that stuff that's not fun. You're getting that done ahead of time. So when they come in and they're ready to hit the ground running, we are actually getting tactical on day one. We're not necessarily talking about, real estate, like how to build your business. We're talking about our company, our core values, who we are as a team, because if that day one, they're not a good culture fit, they're going to hear a lot of mushy gushy stuff and they're going to be like, no, thank you. If that's not a good fit.
I think there's one word that summarizes that. And we want to indoctrinate and enroll them into the team. And we have a system and process and proven process for everything. But it's so much more than that. You can follow our process. You can follow everything. You can make the calls. You can do the work. But if you don't fit in culturally, you don't align with our mission and our values and our principles, it's not going to work. And so I think too many people, yes, I'm a business person. I have to run a business. But guess what is the most important part of the business? It's the people. And so I want to find the right people. And I want to make sure they're in alignment with our vision, our mission, our values. And I want them to clearly, again, clarity is kindness, clearly understand on day one who they sign up to work for and do they still want to be a part of it.
And that day one should echo across your entire organization. That's not just for agents. That should be your operations go through it, your marketing goes through it. Anybody who joins your team needs to have that kind of, we're calling it an orientation day. Everyone has that same exact day one.
Yeah. And rule number one is for me is it's so important that Matt teaches it personally. Mm-hmm. Like that's the only class that I like. I learned this from a coach. I think it was Bob Corcoran. He's like, you don't want to overuse this, son, but sometimes you got a bottom right-hand corner them. I'm like, what is bottom right-hand corner? He's like, you ever get a paycheck before? I'm like, well, yeah. He's like, and whose name's at the bottom right-hand corner? Sometimes as the boss, you just make the decisions. And I'm like, all right, cool. But it was like, that's the only thing that that was a weird reference. Shout out to Bob Corcoran. But that's like, I don't like to lead that way, but that's something that, and I've not had to, right? Leadership understands that the importance of it, but it's just something that I didn't even ask permission for, which is not how I lead. Usually I do. And it's just that important that no, I'm demanding that I lead that session because without it, the rest of it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, and I don't even think that it's like the bottom right-hand corner is funny, but it's also, you can't delegate your push-ups as a leader. Right. You can't be like, hey, the story that is so intimate to me as to why I started this team, and all the stuff behind it, Jenna, I want you to tell it. There's no way I'm going to be able to tell it the way that you're going to tell it. It's just not going to happen. And
if you're a leader listening, you're like, well, I don't have that thing. You do. You just need to dig deep. You need to have some clarity time with yourself and you need to figure out what that is. It doesn't have to be a sob story. It has to be genuine and authentic, but everyone has a story and you need to figure out what your story is. And if your story isn't that sexy or cool or whatever, cool. Your story's your story, own it. But then you need to tie it to the vision of why you're doing it, what you're building. And like nobody can do that like the leader and the visionary. And that's just something that you can't outsource. You have to do it yourself. Yeah.
Real estate is a tough industry. No one gets in it just for shits and giggles. Like no one does that.
That's exactly why I got in it, Jenna. What do you mean?
That's another thing. But one good way, if you're trying to figure out, okay, how do I even find this? Think about where you were, where you are, and where you're going. If you can split into those three groups and just kind of start filling in those pieces, that's going to give you that story to give to your team.
Love it.
Yeah.
So Jenna, let's go through. I know we're short on time here. So I want to be tactical. And if this is valuable, and you want us to dive deeper, we can do another episode to dive deeper, but give them the general overview of, I want everyone to get as much value as they can. So let's talk about boot camp specifically. Mm-hmm. What are the sessions that we teach?
Okay, so like I said, day one is going to be, we call it Welcome to Matt Smith Real Estate Group Orientation Day, where we're covering core values, core focus, all of that stuff, Matt's story, and it's kind of like a little
vision, the vision of the company,
where we're going, all that stuff. Once we get done with that day, the next day we're moving into some basics that they're going to need. So we're trying to create.
I'm going to interrupt. Sorry. In addition to on day one, also a very important part of this. This is crucial. It's everything that Jenna mentioned, plus mindset and time management. Mindset, time management, accountability. I don't know if that's day one or day two where Jenna moved that. That's day two now. Cool. But that before you teach them how to lead generate or how to prospect, but if they're not indoctrinated into and enrolled into your culture, your core values and who you are and your vision of your company, and they don't understand how to get their mindset right and why it's important, they don't understand how to manage their time, and they don't understand the importance of accountability, it's probably not going to work. So let's make sure we get those things out of the way first and foremost. It sounds like I overspoke for Jenna because she's getting ready to say the exact same thing.
No, it's good. Yeah, no. So what we're doing throughout this whole boot camp is we're building the process of, okay, we're not going to just dive right into scripts because you need to have some skills before you get to scripts. So we're kind of creating a process as we go. So after we do that, Welcome to Matt Smith Real Estate Group, we're going into that time management, that accountability, giving them those skills. So that way, when they do get to the point where they're managing their business, they have the foundational elements to be successful. So that's the entirety of day two. Day three is one of my favorites because it can be kind of brutal and I love it. But so we start day three off with prospecting. And you heard me right. We're doing straight prospecting. We're not giving them scripts. We're not giving them help. We're sending them and feeding them to the wolves and saying, go call some clients and call. Matt, do you want to talk about that? What's your favorite too?
I love it. So I don't know where this came from. If I stole it from someone, if I stole it from you, all the credit to you. I don't remember who you are, but I just, it's something that once I put in place and once I understood the concept and the psychology around it, I've shared it with so many of my coaching clients. I've shared it with so many people at masterminds, and it's brilliant. So how many agents that come onto a team struggle to really adopt and be ingrained into your scripts and dialogues? It's a struggle for a lot of people, but it's also a very important part of them being successful. It's not that I think talk tracks is probably a better word for it, right? It's like, do they understand and have this stuff embodied enough where they can have a better conversation with more people? And part of that conversation has to do with real estate, right? And so it's not the old fashioned scripts. But anyway, the point being, maybe that's a whole nother podcast. Point being is, I think the human brain and salespeople in general, especially if they're a veteran agent or they have some experience, they're somewhat resistant to that. And so I built a plan and process to remove that resistance. And day one, we give them, and this is intentional. And if you're joining my team, here's my secret. And I tell you after day three anyway, but I give you 50 of the oldest, deadest, worst leads I can find. And you call all 50 of them. I leave the room. And you call them and I say, good. They're like, what are we doing? Sell them a house. And they call and they fall flat on their face. They fail miserably and they're like defeated. Number one, what am I checking for? Are they actually going to do what I asked them to do? Number two, I want them to have a little bit of, man, this sucks. This is tough. I don't know if I should have done this. And then I come in an hour, 2 hours later, whatever time it takes for them to make those 50 dials. I shouldn't take very long because most of them are bad numbers. They're not going to answer, right? They're just those type of leads on purpose. And I come in, I'm like, how'd it go, guys? And they're just defeated. They're just like miserable. Like, this sucks. Is this what real estate is? I'm like, well, what would have made it better? Well, we just didn't know what to say. And these people weren't even interested in buying real estate. And they just hung up on me and all these different things. Well, would it be helpful if you know like a talk track that's proven to actually work through and have better conversations with people that are actually interested in buying and selling real estate? Yeah, that'd be great. And we're just reverse engineering. Now they're begging for scripts and they're begging for dialogues and they're begging for a process to call the right leads and have the right conversations instead of the things you're trying to beat their head against the wall to get them to do. Now they want it and they're encouraged about it. And so it works really, really well to get them to adopt. And then you go right into scripts and role play and training. And it just really helps indoctrinate them into the importance of those things. And a lot of them don't forget that day 3 if you do it the right way, because it's supposed to be a struggle.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, and real estate's uncomfortable. It is so uncomfortable calling strangers. And if somebody can't make it through the discomfort of that and just own it and dive into it as best they can, they're going to struggle. I would say they're not going to make it if they can't get through that.
Yeah. And a pro tip too. This should go without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. This is an overall arching principle that I coach people through is when you onboard, have an onboarding process and day that is set. You have a hire date. If you go to any job anywhere in the world, they give you a hire date. Why in the world in real estate? Oh, come whenever you want. And then we got to scramble to get onboarding together, right? So have a hire date. And if you're a team, I never say never, but in this case, I'm saying never onboard in singles, always onboard in a group. Groups are so much more efficient and effective. So always make sure that you have a group onboarding, even if it's 2 people. But the bigger the group, what we've experienced, the better the success that we've had because they build that camaraderie. They encourage each other. There's that healthy competition. And it just adds a lot to the onboarding process where they can really learn and collaborate with each other. And they get a little of that team feel inside of the team as they're onboarding for the team.
Yeah, absolutely. And so once we go through, we let them prospect, like Matt said, then we run through our scripts and really the rest of the time is internalizing the foundational scripts of our team. So we're not giving them every single script known to man. We've narrowed it down to, I think we have 2 of the most important scripts. And that's it. That's all they focus on.
We want them to master those during boot camp. There's other scripts, there's other dialogues, but get these 2 down because they will handle 80% of the conversations.
Exactly. We also bring up the common objections that they'll get and start working through that with them and start role playing those things. But it's really that entire time is just focused on internalizing and handling and understanding our clients.
All right, Jen, I got 5 minutes left. Let's get the rest of the sessions.
All right. So session 3, that's going to be more technical. So now we've learned how to prospect. Now we're going to talk about our database because that's where all of our clients live. So we need to learn how to work the database, what our standards are for the database, how to build your pipeline in the database. It's a little bit more technical of a day.
And we do that workshop style, right? So we show, but then we also have them do the work themselves and work through so that we understand we're not just telling, we're actually demonstrating, and they see us do the thing, then they do the thing with us seeing them to make sure that it ingrains.
Exactly. Application has to be in every single session.
That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, there you go. I got you. We're also talking about how to set appointments and follow-up boss. Like we're talking about the technical nitty-gritty pieces, some referral program stuff. After that, we're moving to session 4, where we're kind of start talking about the offer of creating the perfect offer, how to get your clients to the offer, some dot loop forms, again, some more technical stuff, but it's the things that they need to know. You can't send them.
It would be traditional, like your contract and forms training, but more than contract and forms, we want to teach them the strategy behind writing a better offer, a strategy on how to get more offers accepted, and a strategy on how, like, the strategy behind it more than just here's your contract and here's what it means.
Yeah. And then after that session, then we're going into under contract processes. So one thing that we did really, that one mistake we made in the past with onboarding is we really just focused on the contract and under contract, and that's it. Which those are great things. But if you don't know how to prospect and you don't know how to set an appointment, your knowledge on how to write a contract and how to go under contract is useless because you don't know how to get there.
Here's my belief, and I'm an extremist, so I think the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. But we had a trainer in the past that believed that agents wouldn't take action because they didn't know how to fill out a contract. I believe the agent won't take action because they haven't taken action. They haven't built that confidence in themselves. And so I don't care, like, until you actually prove to me that you're willing to do the prospecting, and there's a reason that we do this the way that we do it, until you show me and prove to me that you're willing to actually meet the expectations we set at the beginning and actually get out of your comfort zone and call complete strangers and fall on your face, until you show me and demonstrate you're willing to do that, a contract, what's that? It doesn't matter because you're never going to get to one. Right. And so, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Maybe they will, but you get my point, right? I want to teach
They'll get
them.
there by accident.
Yeah. And I want to, and I want to give them, and I know some people have like that analysis brain and they want to know everything. Let me just break it to you. Never will. We all learn something new every day in this business. You will never know everything. So just give up and just start. But you got to start by doing the things that actually produce income. And then once you're at the point of write a contract, if you're on a team like ours, I promise you somebody will help you write that contract. But so many people get stuck and they want to know all of that before they figure out how to lead generate and how to get to the contract portion. And we spend the majority of our time on how do we get you to the contract portion. And then once you have contracts, you learn how to write contracts by actually writing contracts.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that we still do contract training, but it's a small piece of what we do, because that's not the most important on how you actually have a successful real estate career.
Yeah. Yeah. So to summarize kind of how this flow goes, we start with time management, accountability, the foundational elements. We move to prospecting. We move to database management. We move to the contract. We end with under contract. And that's kind of fire hose information.
Yep.
So what we're going to start doing is week 2 is the application, like we talked about, which as you're going through the sessions, you're doing application. But week 2 is, all right, here are the things that you're going to shadow. We're going to do a mock showing. We're going to go to a listing appointment. We're going to do these things together. And we're going to apply this stuff in the field. So, by the time you're done, like, exactly what to do to hit the ground running.
I love it. Good stuff. Cool. That's down and dirty on onboarding and boot camp.
And then the other thing too is once you get through that piece, and you've got now they're in their 90-day onboarding piece, you end boot camp with setting clear expectations of what's expected of them in that 90-day onboarding, and then you hold them fiercely accountable to it.
Yes, 100%. It's not like, hey, you graduated, good luck. There's a reason we have a 90-day window. And I mean, it's not just for our new agents. We have 90-day check-ins with all of our agents, right? But we have and I don't mean it like this way, but just like for analogy, it's like almost like a shorter leash, right? And it's not because we don't trust them or we don't want them to like leave the nest and we're trying to limit them. It's just that we have found that if we cut them too loose too quickly, they develop bad habits very quickly. They detach and they kind of fizzle out from the momentum we built in boot camp. And we want them to continue that growth path and that succession plan. That's why they partner with us to begin with, is because they see the track record of success. And so it's not in a micromanaging way. It's just in we have weekly follow-up meetings, and we have expectations of first 30 days. Here's where you need to be first 60 days, first 90 days. And there's accountability around those things. And if at the first 30 days, maybe you kind of fall off track, we have a performance review plan, and let's get you back on track. Because if you're not on track the first 90 days, what's going to happen in the next 90 days, right? It's like, we got to make sure we nail that part, and we're
and you have
good habits.
Yeah. You have to remember that when you've got those new agents that get out of boot camp, their role models are your top agents that have been on your team for a really, really long time. And so they have built really efficient skills and really efficient businesses, which means they might not have to dial as much. They might not be in office as much because they're efficient. What you don't want is they're looking at them and saying, oh, well, if they're doing it, then I don't need to come to the office. I don't need to make as many dials because they're successful. But what we have to do is show them that, yes, but they're successful because they put in the work at the beginning that we're holding you accountable to.
Yeah. You don't see the work that they did when you weren't here.
Exactly.
Yep. 100%. I get asked all the time, Matt, how can I partner with you? I love what I learned in your podcast. I love what you said in this speech. I love the success that your team has created, and I want to be a part of it. I want to partner with you. How can I work with you? Our team has been with eXp Realty
since 2018. And we love eXp for how the collaboration, the community, all the support they provide to our team and our business. And so if you're interested in learning how can I partner with Matt, what do the options look like? You can have coaching. I have a lot of free stuff like I'm giving you on this podcast, but there's so many other ways that we can partner together and we can be in alignment, and we can collaborate, and we can actually help you grow your business through a strategic partnership. Imagine being in financial alignment with the people that you looked up to, the people that you took advice from, and you actually work together to create a community where teams are working with each other and collaborating versus competing. So if this interests you, text me, partner, to 573-261-6778.
When we say attrition, when we say turnover, when we say, well, agents left the team or agents left the business or agents maybe even chose to go to a different organization, I think it just has a negative context. I think most people think that that is just, ooh, that's negative, right? And I don't think that's always the case. I think from personal experience in our organization, are there times that maybe it feels that way? Sure. But overwhelmingly, it's always been a good thing.
Yeah.
Right.
And it is hard because there are people that you get to know and people that you want to see them succeed. You become friends with them and then they, leave that environment, and that can be really challenging. But it's usually ends up being better for both the environment and for that individual too.
Yeah, 100%. And I've seen that over and over again as a team leader. It's my responsibility to protect the team first. Mm-hmm. And there's different ways that we do that. But I think that, and we're going to unpack that, but I think that it's the misconceptions are, well, if you're losing agents, there must be something wrong. If agents are choosing to work somewhere else, there must be a better opportunity somewhere else. If agents aren't selling houses, maybe there's something wrong with the environment. And all those are things that you probably should look into. I certainly have, with really in depth, to look in the mirror first and say, man, we've had some turnover. I mean, as an example, we've lost 6 agents this year. Well, we've also brought on 18. And we just, for those of you that maybe follow me on social media, I just shared a post that a lot of leaders reached out to me privately saying, man, this is epic. This is great. Not many people can make a post like that. And it's we have 10 agents that have sold over 100 homes since they've been on the team. And the team's been in existence, 2016 it was formed, right? So put that in perspective. And collectively, those 10 have sold how many, Jenna?
Over 1,600 homes. Over
1,600 families served from those 10, which is pretty just miraculous. It's amazing. And so I think in a weird way, attrition helps that. Mm-hmm. Turnover helps that. And so we're going to unpack that a little bit. But before I go to the next item, Jenna, would you like to kind of share maybe some misconceptions that you hear, or maybe I think you have a unique perspective because it does have a negative context on the overall culture sometimes, mm-hmm. even with members that you work with, even with the marketing department that you work with, it can just feel like it's a bad thing.
Yeah. Well, there are some truths that I do think are important to point out. First, you had mentioned all those questions you went through of like, why is it happening kind of thing. And I do think it's really important that we as leaders stay so curious as to why things are happening and really address and challenge if that's the truth. Because I'm not going to make accusations or I should say assumptions. Sorry, I'm not going to make assumptions about other teams. So you have to be able to really challenge the things that people are accusing you of and look internally and see if there's any layer of truth to them so you can hit that head on. So I think that's really important. I will say, I came from a background where turnover wasn't really existent. I was a nanny for 9 years, and turnover is not a thing as a nanny, so you don't experience it.
If it was I don't like it. Give me the next one. This one.
Yeah, next one. This one cries too much. Get him away. But so turnover is not really a thing as a nanny. But even when I was in an educational setting, or if I was in a job that was more of a corporate style entry level position, turnover is a really taboo subject. It's like, ooh, there's turnover. This is bad. It's bad, 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 bad. And so when I came to Matt Smith Real Estate Group in a real estate company, it was very kind of jarring for me initially because I'm like, there are people leaving a little more frequently than what I'm used to. And it took a little bit for me to adjust to it because I'm not the kind of person who's going to just feel something uncomfortable and run away from it. If I see something that I don't quite understand, it doesn't click in my brain. I think it's really important that you dive into it and you challenge it and you address it and you see different viewpoints. And in doing that, I learned a lot about who we are as a company, that we have high standards, we have expectations, we hold our people to those things. And we also have a strong culture, and we're not willing to settle for a not great culture, for a mediocre culture. And because of that, it produces sometimes that turnover that we're talking about. It's not always culture related. Sometimes it's just not a good fit, period. They're not meshing and we're not meshing, and it just walk away. But it was a little jarring for me to get used to. And now it's something that, I've grown a little bit more accustomed to, but I've been able to see the fruits of it on both ends. Like I said, not only is it better for our environment to see it growing stronger, but it's also better for the other person, that they weren't really in the place that they needed to be, and they're able to find a place that maybe better suits them and their goals and stuff like that. So I found that it's been more of a positive, less of a taboo, and less of a negative.
Yeah, and there are aspects of it that are negative, right? It's never fun. It's never an easy thing to do, because, like, at least in our environment, and most people have a big heart and they want people to win. Mm-hmm. But the reality is that sometimes as leaders, and I struggle with this still, is that I want people to win more than they want to win. Mm-hmm. I want more for them than they want for themselves. And so there's two things that I've struggled with over the years, and me either pushing them further than they want to be pushed, which drives them away, drives a wedge in the relationship, or me holding on too long because I know they can do it. They're just choosing not to, hoping that they'll wake up and do it. And I want it for them, and they aren't doing what they need to do for themselves. And that just prolongs the suffering before they decide real estate's not for me. And so what I've just realized as a leader, again, I'm not perfect, but what I've just realized is that whenever you're having those, like, it really helps the other individual and it helps the team, which I have to protect, whenever you just make those decisions quicker. And I'm not saying just, hey, someone's not producing, or someone has one bad day and we just fire them. That's not, don't go that far, right? That's not what I'm saying at all. But I am saying it's really important that you develop a system and a plan that we try to get people back on track. So we use our core values as an example, as a guardrail. And you know what? Sometimes you cross the rumble strips when you're driving down the road. Well, guess what? That's a reminder. Oh, let me veer back over. And our core values are kind of like our rumble strips, our guardrail of, like, oops, we kind of got outside of that. Let's get back on track. And now if people refuse to get back on track, you're going to crash the car, and I can't let that happen, right? And so it's just really important that we have those conversations. We give them an opportunity to make that adjustment, because we're all humans. Let's talk about productivity, though, right? Let's say it's a production based. I think that we have too much ego in this business, and I still have ego, right? It's not like it disappeared. I've just been able to control it better than I used to. And one of the things I used to say is that I had this high ego of we were just a really high producing team and everything was going really, really well. And I said, if you come join our team, I'll make you successful. And it's just such a bullshit lie. I can't make anyone successful. I don't care who you are. Like, nobody can make anyone else successful. That person has to want it for themselves. And thank God I started coaching with John Cheplack, and he really helped me see this from a different perspective. And my responsibility as a leader of this organization is to provide the environment for them to make a choice to be successful. And so what I look at now is the environment a successful environment where they have the opportunity to be successful? If they do ABC, will they be successful? Now, if they choose to do ABC or choose not to do ABC, that's out of my control. Certainly there's some leadership, some coaching, some training, some accountability that I can help with, and that's part of what our environment provides, but ultimately it's up to them. And I think that too many people just get stuck in that. And I see that with, especially as a coach, I see that in other aspiring leaders that are growing their teams, is they're just like, they really struggle to enforce the standards. They really struggle to have the accountability conversations. And I really think that it comes from two spots. It's ego and heart. And it's really weird that it comes from both of those because they're contradicting, right? The ego says, I can make you successful. But the heart says, man, I really want something more for that person. But both of those combined are just a really, really bad combination for a leader to have. It's just a constant struggle, causes all kinds of conflict and sleepless nights. And so I just think that sometimes you just have to lay it out, and you have to have a standard, and you have to say, here are the expectations. Here's what we will do for you. We are business partners here. Here's what we will do. We'll hold up our end of the bargain. Here's where you meet us halfway. And they do or they don't. And I think too, I want to talk about the ego a little bit more, is that one of like when we have our boot camp of bringing new agents on, the very first session is the one that I refuse to let anyone else teach in our organization. I need to be part of it because I think it's the most important one. And it's on mindset. And I think that if you don't start off with the right mindset, it doesn't matter. And the very first stat that I give everyone is 87% of real estate agents fail. 87%. That's just a stat. That's real. It's been the same number or close to it ever since I've been in the business. It's probably even higher than that now because of, like, last year, 70,000 agents left the business. There are projections and articles that I've read that say another 200,000 are going to leave this year. And so who are we as, like, this high ego individual saying, well, that's not going to affect our organization. That won't affect our business. I mean, it's the numbers are the numbers. And I think it was on this podcast, actually, I interviewed Will Grimes, and he opened my eyes to several things. And I think he's a great leader, and he's got a great story. Go back and find his episode. It was really, really powerful. But he said, dude, like, so many people want more for others than they want for themselves. And he said, I just realized not everybody's cut out to be a real estate agent. And that's fine. Why are we trying to put a square peg in a round hole? Why are we trying to force people to be a real estate agent when that's not what they want? That's not where they excel. And so it just really helped me make those decisions quicker. And, like, if 87% of real estate agents fail and we bring in a bunch of new agents in our organization, it's my job to set the proper expectations. But the reality is, what's the chances of 100% of them making it?
I mean, you have to think about and I think this is something for team leaders specifically. You know, when you guys are running a team, you've been in it for a while. You've been in the real estate space for a while. You've been selling homes for a while. Brand new agent, they walk in, they're at the very beginning, and real estate is hard. And I would say, especially right now, real estate is incredibly hard. We went from it being, if you had a pulse, you could sell, to whereas now you really have to work very, very hard as a real estate agent. And a lot of people some of them aren't prepared for that. And I think that's something that you would need to a lot of team leaders need to reflect on is, are you getting people in your organization that you're not setting the proper expectations on the front end of how hard and how much work it does take to be a real estate agent? Are you painting this fairy picture of, yeah, you're going to walk in and you're going to be selling homes in no time, you're going to be crushing it, like, that's amazing. Hopefully that's the case, but it's not going to happen without work. Like, you're going to have to put in the work. So making sure you're setting those expectations on the front end, knowing that it is going to be challenging. So when they have that conversation with you, like, hey, Matt, I'm struggling. I don't like this. I don't like any of this. I feel like I'm failing every day. And you're like, do you remember in the interview when I told you this is not going to be easy? You're going to have to make calls. It's going to be uncomfortable. You're going to have people cussing you out on the phone every now and then. But in that time, you're also going to have people who are so incredibly grateful. And you have to push through it to get to those people.
100%. And I think, and I want to get back to, we have 4 points that we're going to cover, but I want to say something, and then I want to get back to kind of go more in depth on these points. Something that you said there that you unpacked goes back to, like, Jenna, you know me, I'm just a quotes guy. Like, that's just how I remember things. And so, like, one of the things that I've heard, and I got it from John Cheplack, at any time you're having a conversation with an agent that could be framed as a disagreement, can you go back to the interview? And if you can't, you need to adjust your interview. Because part of the interview's job isn't here's where I used to go wrong, and where a lot of people that I coach, I kind of help them adjust, is the interview. Yes, it needs to be a sales pitch. You want them to join, you want them to get excited, and you want to, but most people spend all their time doing feature dump, and it's features and benefits. but how many times do we actually set the expectations of the work that it's going to take before they join? And so we make it sound like, hey, if you come over here, it's all sunshine and rainbows and it's all this great things. And we don't unpack the work that's required. And then they start and they're like, holy shit, I didn't know I was going to have to like call people. I literally had someone say, I checked in a week after they started and I said, I just see it's like panic on your face. And I feel like you're struggling to like get into the culture. What can I do to help? And literally like they were like panicked and their face turned ghost white and said, I didn't realize I was going to have to call people. I'm like, holy cow, how did I mess this up? Right. But like, we've been doing it so long, it's normal to us and we understand what is required. But do we really take the time to unpack that and set the proper expectations up front? Because I'll tell you, those disagreements, which we all have, we're humans, right? And so a disagreement or a conflict isn't a bad thing either. Let's get rid of that misconception. Conflict is healthy. Conflict is how you get to solution, right? And so let's say you're having a conflict with an agent. Are you able to go back to the interview? Because if you are and say, hey, Jenna, thank you so much for bringing that up. If you remember when we talked in the interview, we talked about this is the activity that's going to be required. You remember that, right? And Jenna's like, oh, yeah, I do. So, all right, let's go back to this is what we agreed to, right? Like this, and it just really helps that conversation and helps Jenna stay on the path in this instance versus like me not preparing them, not setting the expectation. The agent says, I didn't know I was going to have to make this many calls. I didn't know I was going to have to deal with the rejection. I didn't know that contracts were going to fall through. I didn't know that it was going to take 90 days to get momentum in my business. I didn't know any of this. No wonder they struggle. Right? Like it's just important that we set those proper expectations. And like, if you're interested in having a conversation more in depth, like I've got a framework and I'm happy to unpack this further. Because I think it's specific per team leader, per team. However, it's something I've coached a lot of people through. And I think like a summary that is a principle that applies is that you just have to be able to set the proper expectations. And it is more crucial to set the proper expectations than to give them your features and benefits. I'll just transparently, and a lot of our agents listen to this podcast. Thank you for listening. But you know how many of our agents don't even know what our commission split is when they join? Because that's not what we focus on. What we focus on is how we can help them as a human. We tell them the other success stories. We tell them how much money they can make if they follow the plan. Because it's not about the commission split. It's not about anything other than how we can impact their life for the better. And are they willing to do the work to accomplish it? And it's really that simple. And so I think we should spend more time in our interviews setting up expectations. And like, this is an extreme, but I think it's an extreme to help people reframe their mind. Is what I coach people to do is like, after you decide, I met with Jen, we interviewed, and I think she's a good culture fit. She's excited to join the team. I'm going to try to talk her out of joining because the work's going to be too hard. And if she still wants to join, all right, Jen is a good fit. Again, that's an extreme example, but that's how serious you need to set the expectations. Otherwise, you're just wasting her time and your time bringing on someone that's not hungry, motivated, and willing to do the work.
Recruiting solves all problems. I heard that from John Cheplack at the first John Cheplack event that I ever went to, and I didn't fully understand what it meant. Let's think about it this way. What is easier to do? To get an agent who is a human to change their behavior in the changing marketplace and force them to change, or to bring in new people with new standards, with new activity, new hunger, new drive, and them start seeing results, and then everyone else fall in alignment and want to do the same activities that are producing those results. So many of us overcomplicate recruiting. We don't want to cold call. We don't know who to call. We don't know what to say. We get uncomfortable. So I've developed a solution. We've been operating this in my business for 3 years now. It's recruiting funnels that gives you a conveyor belt of recruits that raise their hand and ask if they can join your real estate team. If you're interested in learning more about a lead generation strategy that runs parallel with your real estate business, just how you run buyer and seller business, we can run your recruiting business the same way. Visit 3recruitingfunnelsbuilt.com to learn more.
Recruiting solves all your problems. It just does. Now we laid out a bunch of the principles of how that applies through this whole episode, but Jenna, what's your experience with recruiting? What have you seen from your seat?
Yeah, recruiting again is something I was pretty foreign to when I first started here. And I think I fell into the trap a lot of people fall into when you first introduce recruiting, especially with agents. They can feel like you're taking opportunities from them, the leads that they would get, they're not going to somebody else. They're taking more under contract, like you're getting less opportunity. And what I found is the exact opposite, that there's usually more than enough opportunity to go around. And if anything, it allows others in the organization to have even more opportunity because of recruiting. That's the biggest thing that I fell into that myself, feeling like, oh man, even in operations, if somebody else comes in, oh my gosh, does that mean like pieces of my job are leaving? No, usually I end up getting a lot more stuff on my plate if that happens. It's the same thing in the recruiting side of things with agents. You have just as much opportunity, if not more.
Yeah, and that requires the leadership to actually make sure that you're ready to recruit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have enough opportunity. But I think most people have way too much opportunity, right? They have way too many leads, including us. And so what happens is sometimes if you just focus on, so as an example, one of the standards we rolled out is our agents have less than 100 leads in their database at all times. And our agents, some of our OGs were kind of concerned with that at first, and rightfully so. But what they've experienced so far is that helps them be way more efficient, and that helps them actually sell more real estate because they're focusing on the right people. And then when they get caught up with that and they want to go prospecting, they want to go find some more opportunities, they go in our ponds. They have access, right, to whatever opportunity they want. There's tons of access. It's over 20,000 lead opportunities we've created this year, the first 6 months of the year.
Yeah.
And that's just the ones we can track, right? There's way more than that. And so there's an abundance of opportunity in our organization. And so make sure that you have that, right? You got to have those systems in place. If you want me to help you build that or look at that, I'm happy to. So it's not all new leads. It's just opportunities is what I would urge you to track. But when you're recruiting, you have to make sure. I think a lot of people go wrong with recruiting. They either try to, I'm only going to recruit people that I know are going to be successful. And they have 3 interviews and they have a disc test and they want to meet their mom and then their cousin and their stepbrother. And it's just this big, long list of all these obstacles in the way of getting people in the door. And then I think there's the other end of the spectrum. We'll just bring everybody in. And what I've found works really well is somewhere in the middle. And I think it's removing obstacles from the interview. When you're interviewing, we're looking for a couple things. Number one, we're looking for, are they a good culture fit? And our interview questions, if you go download them, allornothingrrealestate.com/interview, you'll have some of that framework. But we're looking for, are they a good culture fit? We're looking for, are they open-minded? You have to be open-minded. And we're looking for, do they have the work ethic that it requires? If they have those 3 things, then they've earned an opportunity to start in our organization if they're willing to do the work. But then in our boot camp, we have strict guidelines, and not everybody makes that a boot camp. And that's by design, right? Like it's supposed to be hard because real estate's not easy. And if we make it hard on you in the beginning and you do the work that is required and you build those habits, you're way more likely to be successful in the future. And what we haven't had in a lot of our recent onboarding classes is that massive success. People setting their first appointments in the first week. People getting things under contract before they're out of boot camp. I recently spoke at John Cheplak's Maverick event, and I shared from our last 90 days of onboarding. Our last 90 days of onboarding, I think it consisted of, I don't know, Jenna, how many people was it? Like 10?
Well, it would have been the 18, wouldn't it?
No, not in 90 days. So I think it was 12.
Okay.
I think it was 10 or 12 people. In the last 90 days that I onboarded, and I ran a report on them, and they had set over 150 appointments in the last 60 days. They had 82 agreements signed in the last 60 days of buyer's agency or listing agreements from 10 to 12 brand new agents that onboarded in less than 90 days ago. That's the power of recruiting. That's the power of bringing people in with the right expectations. And not only how does that affect, let's talk 2 parts. How does that affect the company culture? Now, other people are going to want to do more activity because a rising tide rises all ships. They see these people doing more work. They're like, oh, crap, I can do more too, right? That's just how it works. That's human nature. But also, let's talk about putting in the tough expectations and the standards and making it difficult when they first join, so that now they have success in this career that they're actually after. Right? Like, I think it's our responsibility to do those things. And I think sometimes we make it too easy, and they need a little struggle. They need a little suffering. They need a little sacrifice. But if they're willing to do those things, they can accomplish whatever they want in this career. And that's what I want for them.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah. And one thing too, we had talked about initially the team response and stuff with recruiting. It's important that retention is also part of your recruiting plan. I think that they go
1,000%.
They go hand in hand. When you're recruiting out other agents, how are you recruiting your current agents too? I know, Matt, you have a lot on that topic.
Yeah, I think everything that you can, when you say the word recruiting, or you hear the word recruiting from any guru or any coach, whether legit or not, just replace that word with retention. Are you re-recruiting your current roster? Are you re-recruiting your current agents? Are you re-indoctrinating them into the values, into the standards, into the accountability, into everything that your team provides? Part of your job is to continually re-recruit your current roster. If you're not re-enrolling them, re-recruiting them, making sure that they are following the process, making sure you're meeting them halfway, doing your part as a business partner. Because as an agent grows and progresses through their career, what happens most of the time on most teams? They stop seeing the value in the team, because law of diminishing value, right? What was valued for me last year isn't so valuable for me this year. And so are you out in front of that as a team leader? If you don't believe me, think of something new that you bought, whether it's a new car, it could be a new pair of shoes, a new clothes. Think of something that you were proud of when you bought it. How long did it take for you to stop being proud of it? Not very damn long. Right? Most of us, if you've got a new car, right, as an example, like when you're driving down a gravel road, you'll drive real slow because you don't want it to get dirty. You clean it every day. That'll last about 2 weeks, right? And then you just don't give a shit anymore. So that's just how we are as humans. And so what are we doing as leaders to meet those agents to ensure that we are there through their step of the journey? Because as they grow as an agent, so do their needs. They need different things. Sometimes they need more support. Sometimes they need you to step back. Sometimes they need more leads. Sometimes they need less. Sometimes they want more time, so they need more leverage. Sometimes they're in a position where they don't want to grow over the next quarter. They're like, I'm just good where I'm at. I want to spend more time with my family. I want to do whatever. And do you know that with your roster? You have to, because it is your job to meet them where they are. Again, let's go back to the very beginning of this conversation. One of my biggest failures as a leader is I see potential in people, which is an amazing gift, and I love it. But it led me down the wrong path and me wanting more for people than they wanted for themselves. And if you push them more than they want to be pushed, it drives friction and a wedge in the relationship that sometimes you can't repair, even though it comes from a great place. And so instead of pushing, you have to pull them, and you have to meet them where they are. And sometimes they're not ready yet for that next step, and you have to be okay with that. But you also have to be there when they are ready to help pull them up. So important. I don't know if that's where you wanted me to go with that, Jenna, but that's what was hard.
No, I love it. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I think next thing is we talked about all that. So how is the next thing?
So that's one of the number one questions I get. They hear a lot of my stuff is about recruiting, and they're like, well, how do I even recruit? Mm-hmm. So it actually caused us to create a program. And so we created recruiting funnels that we use in our business, and they're available, built for you. So if you're interested in what a recruiting plan looks like, I'm happy to have a quick call with you to kind of go over that. Reach out to me, or you can just check out our recruiting funnels and we'll build them for you. It's a one-time fee. We'll build them for you in your accounts. Give you the playbook. I don't know how big is the playbook, like 96 pages of it. Here's exactly step by step what to do. Yeah. Jenna and I are actually planning a live Zoom with those that have already purchased. And that could be you if you're interested, of kind of just re-going over it. We're starting to see people are getting a lot of traction with their funnels, which is awesome. We just want to make sure we build upon that because we're committed to helping people get success with those. And so there's some subtleties and nuances that we want to help coach through, as well as live Q&A. And so if you're interested in getting those recruiting funnels built for you, that is literally, here is exactly what to do. and it's built for you with your image, your branding, your everything in your accounts. All you have to do is hit the play button and run the play. If you're interested in that for a consistent conveyor belt of recruits that are asking you, can I join your organization? That we've been working on, and I don't want to say we've perfected, because I don't think it'll ever be perfect, but we have consistently improved for the last 3 years. Lots of time, blood, sweat, and tears into these. This is the playbook for you. Go to 3recruitingfunnelsbuilt.com. All spelled out, 3recruitingfunnelsbuilt.com, and you can get more information there. If that's not of interest to you, you don't need that, don't worry about it. I'm not trying to sell you on anything, just trying to help you. And if you resonated with this topic, which again, I'm kind of risking having this topic because I've never heard anyone else talk about it. And I consume a lot of content, but I just thought that if it's something that I go through, I'm sure other people do, and I'm just transparent. And I don't think all attrition has to be bad. But if you have attrition, if you don't have attrition, I would say that's worse than having healthy attrition, right? You need attrition. If you're not growing, you're dying. And I think it's really important that if you're gonna stick to any of these principles or things that we talked about, you also have to be able to bring in new people with new standards, indoctrinate them into the culture, and again, get a culture that polices itself, and get a culture of people that are producing at very high levels that raise the levels, or raise the floor, if you will, of the organization. Jenna, anything to add?
Nope, it's an awesome, and with those 3 recruiting funnels, there is a bonus funnel now. So we have 3.
But wait, there's more.
Oh wait, there's more. But yes, we do have 3 recruiting funnels that help for recruiting newer agents, and then we do have an experienced agent funnel. That's something a lot of team leaders have expressed interest in, of focusing on that. And we do have a funnel for that as well too.
Yep, absolutely. And Jenna's really the brainchild behind the marketing of that. And so is there anything marketing related that, say someone is interested in the funnels, but they're like, maybe they don't, it's tough right now, right? Maybe they don't have the money to buy, and that's perfectly fine. Like, if they're listening here, how can we help them with their own version of a smaller version of recruiting funnels? What would be your advice from a marketing perspective?
Well, I mean, to be honest, you can still go to that website and watch the webinar where we talk about how you can do a lot of these things. You can do them yourself. You can do them. It takes a lot of work, and that's why we offer the built for you, because it's completely built for you. We build your landing pages, your graphics, your copyright, your email, your drip plans, like everything. Everything is built for you. So it's plug and play. It's simple. But if you don't have that and you want to spend the time doing it, the funnels are the day in the life of a real estate agent funnel, real estate classes, a scholarship for the real estate classes, and how to make $100,000 in real estate. We walk you through that in that webinar.
I love it. And I think something that my advice would be that just start.
Mm-hmm.
You have to recruit. If you want to grow, you have to recruit, and remove any negative connotations you have around the word recruiting. You're just trying to bring in good people. Every company that has ever grown is recruited. They just call it something different, maybe, right? And so you have to recruit. You have to bring in like-minded people that are hungry, motivated, fit your values, right? It's an open-minded, so important. But if you don't know where to start, just start somewhere. And I think somewhere that you could start would be, treat it like it's a business. If you're listening to this, you have buyer and seller business. What do you do to get buyer and seller opportunities? Do the exact same thing, just change your messaging and make it towards agents. Provide them value. Give them some sort of value. Do you have CRM for them? Are you making a social media post letting people know that you're hiring? And it's not this flashy, hey, we're hiring. It's Jenna calls it sneaky recruiting, right? And so are you sharing success stories of other agents? Are you sharing what is possible? Are you sharing a value of, here's how this one agent sold 3 houses in their first month? And then you deposit and deposit and deposit and deposit. And then maybe you withdraw, right? And you say, like, go back to Gary Vaynerchuk, jab, 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 right hook, right? You got to have those jabs in, and you got to make sure that you're depositing value. And then it's okay to withdraw. and say, hey, look, we're looking for awesome agents, right? But you have to continually deposit value into the marketplace. And I got this from John Cheplack. One of the best recruiting principles that I ever got is you want to be in second place. You want to demonstrate better leadership than their current leader. So one of two things happens over time. Something happens in that relationship and then they want to join you, or your leadership just continues to grow and they're like, what am I doing here? I should go work with this company because they're helping me more than my current leader. And if you just live in that abundance and that contribution, you just can't lose. Awesome. Jenna, anything else?
Nope. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It was a good chat.
Yeah, thank you. It was it was very, very insightful. I learned something. So thank you for your time. Sharing. And I'm sure you guys will see Jenna around on some more episodes. She always has great stuff to share. And as always, guys, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you spending your valuable time to listen to this show. I hope this was valuable for you. It's something that I'm doing as a passion project. And so I just ask, if you related with anything on this episode or you know anyone that would, just share this episode with them. I'm on a mission to help as many people as I can and give back. And not many people are sharing real, raw, authentic. Like as an example, go find another podcast on attrition and turnover in real estate. I just don't know if it exists. I haven't seen it. And so I'm not doing this for anything other than I'm in this journey with you. I'm in the trenches doing this alongside you. And I think I can provide a unique perspective, and I want to help work alongside you through the struggles that I've experienced. And so just share this with a friend, and I hope that we can continue to make an impact on this industry. And who knows what the future holds for this industry. So I think we all need to come together, and this is an opportunity for us to do so. So thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks, Jenna.
Thanks.